Hello everybody, this is episode 7 of Trapped in My Mind. I am your host Seth, and today with me I have my first stranger, AC. Casting over to you.
I'm the first stranger?
Yeah, I roughly knew everybody else, so I'm excited.
Okay, I hope I'm an okay stranger.
Well, we caught up a little bit before, we met a little bit before you got here. Friend of Megan's, right, from episode 4?
Yes, yeah, Megan and I go very way back. We did a lot of shows together. Actually, the first show I was in at Western Michigan University, which is where I graduated from for my BFA in acting, where Megan graduated from also. Our first show was together, and like our second to last show was together, and that's all I should say about those productions. But if she listens to this, she'll be like, eh.
She'll know which ones you're talking about.
Yeah, she will.
Well,
it was fun. I love her. We're secretly the same person, is what we've learned.
Well, that would be interesting because we're talking about different topics this time.
That's true. So, well, I would hope, I don't know, I'll get back to her and I'll be like, do you agree with what I said? Like, I'm sure, I don't know, we think the same in weird ways.
We'll see what comes up. So what first question, what made you want to reach out? You know, I know you probably listened to her episode and saw hers, but why did you, because you never met me, so this is, what made you reach out to a stranger?
Well, that's a good question. My aunt would be like,
yeah, I get that.
I'm an actor, so I like to take weird risks like that. Well, I saw Megan had posted, and first of all, there's like this weird thing that happens. I think when you're an actor, you're like constantly in the back of your head, like looking for opportunities to just do something.
Yeah, hopefully this gets you noticed.
I would hope so. That would be really dope. Maybe I'll regret that in years to come, but I had seen it, and I was like, oh, okay. Well, first of all, if Megan's doing this with somebody, like, first of all, I trust Megan, Megan's judgment. So I know she's doing it with someone who is going to be a open, well-intended, like, good-hearted person. So I saw that, and then I was like, okay, I'll take a sneak peek and like watch some of what the videos she was posting. And I went over and saw that, and then I listened to the start of the podcast at first, and I liked the song intro that you had, and it was just, I think what stood out to me was I was like, okay, I don't know Seth, but I can tell that there's intention in the work that he's doing, and that intention to me is valuable. I'm like, okay, he is doing this with intention and presence, and those are two things I value. So that led me to say, you know, why not? Like, I'm home. Maybe this was why I came home. It just opportunities, and on top of it too, it's we're in the middle of the pandemic, as everybody in the whole world knows, and it's just like every opportunity that I could have to not be isolated
yeah.
And sitting at home worrying and thinking and planning and attempting to relax. I could actually like engage with another human being that isn't my pet or my family, who we just at this point like engage with but argue relentlessly, even though like over nothing.
Yeah.
You know, over string cheese or like some weird thing like.
I feel that. I mean, normally you have to go out to meet strangers, and it's like you can't really do that right now. So the brief meeting that we've had has been enjoyable. So I appreciate you reaching out, and thank you for, you know, your kind words on the intention, because the intention is authentic. I do want to, you know, accomplish some of the things I was telling you about, and that kind of, you know, brings us to this first point.
Well, I just want to cut you off really quickly. I'm sorry.
Cut me off.
To say that in that part, yeah, just know that I'm, like, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't, think that you were doing it with an intention, or were a horrible person, to be frank or honest. So, yeah, you know, I know I don't know you well by any means, but what you're doing, I value. Like, people value that. I value it. I appreciate that you're doing this. Thank you for doing this, and like having the courage to sit down and have an open conversation and then put it out there for, I don't know, some random person to hear and have a heart attack about. Yeah. So like that does not go unnoticed.
Well, thank you. It takes two. And multiple people come on. So
to
people,
tango?
Yeah, exactly. It takes two to tango. It takes two to podcast. So I appreciate you coming on.
That.
But so as I kind of briefly explain in every episode, I usually send people lists of topics that they want to discuss. And you know, one of the first things you said you wanted to discuss was the importance of having hard conversations. And I think that's kind of one of the purposes of this. So before we get started, I'd like to know, why you think it's so important to have difficult conversations, and what's your definition of difficult conversations, I guess, or some examples.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I think I'll start with the latter part of that question. What's your definition of a difficult conversation? I guess I would say my personal definition, because by no means is this in the New Oxford English Dictionary, of a difficult conversation would be having a discussion. What's difficult about a difficult conversation is coming to the table to talk and actually being honest.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I had a professor say to me, and I don't think it's the first time it's been said. I don't think it originates from her, but she said it left and right every day, and it stuck with me for a long time. Say what you mean and mean what you say.
Mm-hmm.
So, having a difficult conversation, it is inherently difficult. One, because we're probably talking about topics that are difficult to discuss in general. Two, they have a lot of backbone to them in terms of fact, research, personal experience. Nobody has a difficult conversation about popcorn, right? Unless you're from Chicago, or you're writing the next episode of Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
At that point, that you're going to have a difficult discussion about a conversation about popcorn, because it's hilarious, it's funny, it's entertaining, but having a general difficult discussion about a hard topic, it takes something out of you.
It takes. It's mentally draining. It takes effort.
Yeah, it is. And forgive me, what was the first part of your question?
The first part of it is why do you think it's so important to have those conversations?
Oh, duh. Well, I mean, I think that question kind of answers itself. That's not any sass towards you, but just just look outside the damn window, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you can swear.
Can I swear?
You can swear. You can swear.
Whoops. Look outside the window pane, and you'll see that life is full of difficult conversations, right? And nobody ever wants to have them. And if sometimes you do want to have them, I'm that weird person that likes having them. I'm that weird person that's like, let's have the difficult conversation, and let's also put it on stage and live in the difficult conversation and eat the difficult conversation for dinner. So I guess it's inherently in my nature to kind of have those conversations, or the second fold of that is it's required of me almost, or of good theater and film and television, in my opinion. But it's an important thing to do. We need to have these conversations, and I know it sounds cliche, and I know every newscaster and co-host and anchor on The View and CNN and Good Morning America has said, it starts with a difficult conversation, because it does.
Yeah, and I think there's a big difference between a difficult conversation with people who are like-minded and a difficult conversation with people who, don't necessarily agree with what the conversation topic is about. Because, I can have conversations about politics, but people who I directly agree with and think it's difficult because it's politics. But if they agree with me and nobody's challenging my thought, then it's a little bit more difficult than if I was far right and I sat down with someone who's far left and we had a conversation and not like a hostile argument, then it's a little bit more difficult. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally. I think, one of the reasons, too, that this was kind of fresh for me, that I put that down or suggested that or liked that topic that you had sent me, was because I had recently, we've all been having a lot of difficult conversations lately about life, and I guess that is the silver lining of this whole experience the past 2 years.
That's good.
Or a year and a half, year and a month. My current roommates, I live with two gentlemen, both men, cisgendered, straight men, and whenever their girlfriends come over, we're a very open group of theater people. One of my roommates is opening a little theater practice in Manhattan, or in upstate Manhattan, New York, forgive me. And the other works as on a PA on film sets. And they're smart, wonderful, great people. Girlfriends are both very intelligent, kind, sweet people. And we're always, when you're hanging out in your home during the pandemic, what else are you going to do? Watch TV and have a discussion. So one day we were watching, I think it was Haunting of Hill House.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen Hill
on Netflix.
House.
Yep.
That one's phenomenal. And then we were watching Haunting of Bly Manor, which is the kind of American Horror Story-esque concept of the part 2, right? It's unrelated, but it's related, similar cast members,
Yeah.
yada, yada, yada. And the conversation, because we're weird and we just like to debate things because we're those weird artsy hipster people that, you know, you go in your mouth when you think about it, sometimes that stereotype that we fall into, but it's true. And we were talking about J.K. Rowling and her recent comments on Twitter, and which, if people are unfamiliar with, she's recently stood up actively, denied, and against the trans community.
She's the author of
Harry Potter.
Okay, and she stood up against trans?
Yes.
Okay.
So she made a comment. It was unclarified. And then she clarified it and said, no, I really do believe this, and I defend this, my point. And that is a whole other 45-minute discussion. But I say that because we're having some of those difficult discussions, right? Granted, we're all people who are on the same page. We're all very like loving, accepting people, and very like I wouldn't be having these discussions if we didn't mean well at the end of the day. Anyways, we're saying that because we're all reading the Harry Potter books right now like nerds. Because I hadn't read them, and my roommate John, his girlfriend Natalie, and I were talking about it, and she was like, "Oh, I almost feel guilty reading this book right now, right? Because I don't support the author. I had bought the book before this process happened, you know, before this whole situation came to light, and you know, this is the debate we're having. Is it still, should I feel bad? Should there be remorse in reading this book? You know, reading the art of the literature after the fact that now we've found out something, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'll leave that discussion to the powers that be and to people to think about, or whoever's listening to have their own debate about that. At the end of the day, read the book, right? The knowledge is helpful. You bought the book before we knew about what was going on with her. You're not actively supporting. At that point, you weren't actively trying to support reprimandations and discriminations against the trans community.
Yeah.
Anyways, after having that discussion, we started to talk about sexuality, of course, right? And suddenly, to my surprise, I had to have the discussion with a friend, very close friend, that not that being gay is a choice. He knew that being gay is not a choice.
Yeah.
And that sexuality and so forth and all of these things that were seen as, oh, it's a choice, you can change that, you know, pray the gay away, and so forth. We were talking about that, and he didn't realize, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he didn't realize or grasp the concept that it's not, he was under the impression that being gay or not being cisgender and straight, heterosexual, was a defect, like a mental disorder, the same way that I'm someone who has OCD diagnosed, obsessive compulsive disorder, that it's a mental disorder. That being said, we had the discussion because I was willing to have that discussion and clarify, because I knew he didn't. He was like, I don't understand. Like, I was like, no, you know, this is seen in the animal kingdom. This is in DNA. You're born with it. It's not, hey, you're born this way, right? Come on. There's no moment in which your mind and or body makes the active choice and flips a switch.
Yeah.
Right? It's the same way that you wake up and you look in the mirror, for the most part, right? I would assume, I don't know you well enough, but I would assume from the light discussion we've had, and you can confirm this, that Seth wakes up and looks in the mirror and identifies as a heterosexual, straight male. You wake up, you look in the mirror, you're like, I am a man, that is how I feel in my body. It's never been a question. Yeah. It's the same situation for members of the LGBTQIA plus community. You and Megan discussed this in the last podcast, so I don't want to go into that discussion because it's already been had, but having that discussion was hard, right? Midway through having it, I started to get a little shaky and a little nervous, not because of my friend. I knew I was in a safe environment. I wouldn't be having this discussion with him if I wasn't. But I started to get that trauma of being in middle school, sitting in church, meeting people for the first time, and hearing that they don't support me. And it's not even that they don't support me, it's that you start to feel like I am not safe. If things were to, if the ceiling were to cave in, right, or we were to go to a protest and things were to really turn south, I'm not necessarily safe around these people.
Yeah.
They don't, not that they're going to outright harm me right away,
yeah.
by any means. You know, there's a privilege to that. I'm not a person of color walking around where there is a heightened level of feeling unsafe
yeah.
around a cop and so forth. You know, I don't walk into Kroger and feel like people's eyes are on me. But when these discussions about being gay come up and we start to have discussions about my rights and being able to get married and donate blood, one of which you weren't allowed to do until a little bit ago,
yeah.
you know what I mean? You start to get shaky because it awakens being told that you're less. Oh, that you're incorrect. Oh, this is a choice. You know, people telling you all of these things and you're saying, well, hey, I'm the source of this.
Yeah.
Why am I not allowed to discuss it? Why am I not allowed to lead this conversation?
Mm-hmm.
So, and at midway through the conversation, I had to say, you know, I have to stop. We got to stop having this conversation. Not because you're being rude or disrespecting me or not listening, but because I don't feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And that's okay to say, we need to stop. And I need, see, even the categories. We need to stop. And I just needed to go take a moment for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Just to settle. Even now, talking about it, I get a little... I get that feeling in the pit of my stomach. And it's not because I feel unsafe around you. It's because the conversation and the topics we're discussing are hard.
Yeah.
They're traumatizing for a lot of people. And it awakens something that reminds you and puts you back in that unsafe place. You know, I had a professor one time who was talking about the psychology of acting, and we were doing some research and reading through some research on acting and talking about how when you're on stage recreating a traumatic experience, your body cannot tell the difference between whether the experience is actually happening and whether or not it's fabricated. It's the same reason in the past recent years we have intimacy coaches on stage, right? For plays like Slave Play by Jeremy O'Hara. It's phenomenal. If you ever get bored and you want to read a play. That will really challenge yourself sitting and watching. I say that because if we're not having these difficult discussions, one, we're at a loss. And I apologize for going so off on this. It's just discussing the topic gives me a little bit of fogginess because I start to lose the focus, right,
Mm-hmm.
because of the topic. But if we, one, don't have these difficult conversations, and two, the most important part, if the people that are at the forefront of these conversations that they are about are not leading the conversation, inherently in having that conversation, they are being disenfranchised, possibly traumatized, and at a loss. You know, it's like putting somebody on the stand and then saying, I'm putting you on the stand so that you can speak your mind, but actually you're just going to sit here and we're all going to talk about how we feel about you.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting nowhere. One, that doesn't happen in a court of law, correct? Because then we're not getting anywhere. Mm-hmm. We're not progressing. You know, if we bring a witness to the stand, it's because we need to hear what they're saying, what happened, their recount, their understanding, right? Mm-hmm. So if we start to have these conversations and the conversation is more or less to affirm someone else's belief or make them feel comfortable, that's when we need to say to ourselves and feel comfortable saying, you know, maybe we need to take a moment and take a breather, reconfigure. This is why I feel uncomfortable, and we'll come back to it, mm-hmm. right? This is the issue with why so many Black Lives Matter discussions and you know, you can't just, yes, it's good that we're changing the face of Aunt Jemima on the pancake box, but that doesn't change everything going on around us, right?
Yeah.
And that's something that, to be frank, a white person, myself included, will see and say, oh, that's good, that's change, right? But is it really change when the way you physically and emotionally and mentally, forgive me, live your life doesn't change? Is there really that much change happening?
No.
So exactly, you know, I have a friend who I won't say what college she goes to, but right after that conversation, I immediately texted her and I was like, I need to talk to you. I need to call you. Good, really good friends in college. Got along really well. Did shows together. She has a very maternal energy to her that I admire so much, and she was saying, you are you do we need to have a discussion about having discussions with ignorant people? And I was like, yeah, I think I do, because I haven't had that experience since I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I didn't know how to handle that discussion when I was younger. I know how to handle it now. But even then, handling that discussion takes time. So when we're saying, we need to fix, for example, systemic racism, right? We can't say, okay, we're going to gather up all of these leaders in the black community, and Stacey Abrams and Kamala Harris, and Raphael Warnock. We can't gather up all of these people and say, okay, now you go have the discussion and tell and so forth, and we'll sit here and take notes. I love that the cat either agrees or disagrees with me. But you can't go have that discussion and leave. You have to have the discussion, but you cannot leave the work to the minorities and the people who have been disenfranchised. It is not their job to repair the systemic racism and the acts of white people for 400 years that have disenfranchised them. I can't then go up to the victim of a rape and say, it is your job to repair the act that was placed on you by no fault of your own, that you did not willingly agree with. It doesn't work. Yeah. It's saying, you need to listen to them, see what they have to say, and then say, I, as someone who is in the privileged place to do the work for you, will now hold your hand and help, and I will facilitate the work with you here whenever you feel comfortable and safe to weigh in on it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the person who's going to lead this discussion. I can only have those. If you're having a discussion about don't ask, don't tell, I may not have been in the military, but if you're having a discussion about don't ask, don't tell, donating blood as a member of the LGBTQIA community, marriage equality, getting married in a church, and all of these things, I would hope you invite me to come have that discussion and lead that discussion.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to the work, we all need to come together and say, we have to do this job together, right? Many hands make light work. So I think that's part of the issue that we're having, is it's good that now we're having these conversations. But the next step is being able to say, when we're sitting down to have a conversation about Black Lives Matter, I think a lot of times I know that a lot of times, and I have heard, that the conversation ends up being about making white people, the initial conversation is about making white people feel less guilty about their ancestors, right, and the decisions they made. Because I'm not actively engaging in slavery, right, and a slave-based economy right now, correct?
Okay.
But the discussion that we're having, a lot of times it ends up becoming the people of color calming down white people in those discussions, and less about. I think you just have to know when to say, this discussion is not about me. It's my time to take a moment, sit back, listen, and then come to the table and say, this is how I think I can help. And it's not saying that your opinion doesn't matter. It's just saying that when if one house is burning on a street, that house is the priority.
Yeah.
That person, that family, that minority who's been disenfranchised are the people who need to lead that discussion. I'm sorry to repeat myself. So
no, I get that.
Move on. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does make sense. I definitely have.
I know that's a lot to throw at you, and I guess put together.
No, and I understand where you're coming from, and the difficult conversations are hard because everyone has.
Really like.
No, you're good. Everyone has opinions, and they don't. I don't know. The key word that you said in your previous statement was that people need to sit down and listen. And listen, I think, is the key word because
exactly. I agree.
I think it was in the podcast with Chris that no one has heard at this time, but will be aired. I kind of mentioned how humans inherently want to help.
Exactly.
So like, let's as a white person, I want to help the black community, right? However, they don't necessarily want to be helped right away. They want to be listened to, and then, like you said, move forward and help it. And I don't even want to I don't even want to speak for the black community or the white community because I don't have
help you.
I'm
right
not.
away.
I'm,
you
I'm
have
not,
to tell me.
Yeah, I'm also not. What's the word? I'm not important enough to speak on that. I'm not the one that's going to be fixing anything. However, to your point, I think what these types of conversations do is maybe it doesn't fix anything right away, but it humanizes one another. And I guess that's the question I was going to ask you is, I don't know what J.K. Rowling said or what her what she tries to do.
I will put a pin in it, and honestly, because it's a big long discussion, and I don't. I think it will really lead us off to another million discussions.
So then, a very small sample then of what I'd ask is, and you can either answer this as your personal opinion or what you think others might feel. But my question is, no one's ever, the entire race or everybody in the world is never going to agree on one thing ever, right?
Exactly.
So
I would hope not. That would make humanity quite boring.
Okay. So point being, maybe.
Although in some cases, I wish we could agree on everything and just get along with it and be happy. But anyways.
See, and so my point is, for me, you don't have to agree with everything as long as you see the person as a human and treat them as such. And I think so. I guess the question would be, if J.K. Rowling's out here, verbally abusing transgender people or trying to build propaganda that sets them back, then I think that's wrong. But if she internally just doesn't really believe transgender is a thing and it's not her thing, but she still treats people as humans, including transgender, then for me, I don't have a problem with her. But it's when you start becoming malicious and you have
infringing on other people.
Yeah, that's where the issue is. So I guess my question would be for you, and this isn't my belief, but let's just say I don't agree with gay. I think it's black and white. You should be straight, right?
Yeah.
If that's my belief,
don't worry. It's not the first time someone's come to me and actually meant that. I know you don't.
I don't. I don't. I understand that it's. I don't understand, but I can empathize that it's. You wake up and it's you're attracted to a different sex, right?
Yes.
But if let's say I'm very religious, right, and I just didn't believe that to be true, but if I treated you normal and I never told you, oh, I hate you, I hate the person you are, could we coexist and get along?
Yes, we could coexist, and then I think it becomes a fine line because there's a difference between tolerance and acceptance.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
We've had that tolerance. I think the difference between tolerance and acceptance is knowledge.
Yeah.
And understanding and listening. People who are like, I tolerate it, I don't agree with it. Well, I'm not debating with you on the taste of Faygo.
Mm-hmm.
I'm debating with you on the life and the rights of a black man or woman, or person, I should say, black brothers and sisters. Their right to life. That is not debatable.
Mm-hmm.
So whether you agree or disagree with that and tolerate it, it makes me, in that particular discussion, you can't just tolerate that. You need to accept it because these are people's lives.
Yeah.
It's not a cereal box flavor. It's not Lucky Charms versus Cheetos. Oh my God, Cheetos a chip. Lucky Charms versus Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
We're not comparing light flavors at the grocery store. We're comparing someone right to a life.
Yeah.
I think that is, and not that we're about to need to have this discussion, but I think that fine line is felt in discussions like abortion, right?
Yeah.
And so what does it come down to? We need to have the discussion. We need to have the discussion, and almost, if it's in a public sense, right, if it's in a law sense, if we're having that public discussion or debate on television, we need a facilitator, someone to say, hey, this person doesn't feel safe anymore. A lot of this stems from emotional education. Mm-hmm. We have not been trained. We have not been raised. We take classes in history in middle school, classes in math, science, literature, grammar, presentation. We don't ever gym, physical education, PE. We don't take classes in emotional education.
Mm-hmm.
We take classes in language. And while I think all of these are important, it would be, in my opinion, even more beneficial to take 5 minutes out of each of those courses and put them towards a course of emotional education to say, I know you're 6, and I know you don't really have all of these things going on in your head yet, but when you feel depressed, this is what this feeling is like. It feels like this color, right?
Yeah.
This color is this letter, right? That's how we educate children, right? What sound does this animal make? We show the picture of the animal. What sound does this make? And the kids all respond, right? Mm-hmm. What if I showed you this color and I said, what emotion does this usually convey? Look, this person is hugging themselves, sad in a corner with a cloud over them. What is that? I doubt a lot of times kids would probably be able to be like, he's unhappy, he's sad. Yeah. I want that immediate response of that might be depression.
Yeah.
Things that we all experience in our daily lives, but we were never taught how to grapple with them and live with them and
recognize them.
I want us all to get to a point where I can take responsibility for my emotions and say, I'm having a bad day today. When I go into work, I'm having a bad day. It's not you. Just because I'm in a bad mood, it's not you. I just am telling you because I respect you as a person. I want you to know I'm having a rough day today. No, I don't think there's anything you can do to help me, but I appreciate that you might be thinking that. I just need some time to myself. So if I'm a little less responsive or I seem a little out of it, that's why. And that immediately takes off in your head. If a good person running around work is like, I don't know why Sandra, it seems like she's having a rough day, right? You immediately almost start thinking to yourself, well, maybe I did something. Maybe I said something to her at work that made her unhappy. Maybe, but we don't know that. So when we're honest with our emotions and we have these discussions, it eliminates the uncertainty. And when it eliminates the uncertainty, we can really get to the root of the problem, right? Maybe the root of that problem was that she's sick. Oh, you're sick and you're not, we're actually having this discussion now? Oh, it's simple. You're sick. Here's some medication that I cannot legally give you from work. Here's an aspirin. Sign off on it. Okay, and you know what? You should go home and get some rest because you deserve that, right? Think of how many great discussions and how many issues we'd be able to resolve if we actually were honest with other people.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
That's hard.
I can see that going both ways, though, because if you're honest with somebody, and you don't, so you say something that's honest, but not necessarily in good, in good spirit, that might piss somebody off.
You have to always be leading the conversation with compassion and kindness.
Yeah.
That's another thing, and I'm glad that you brought that up, and I think you would agree with this. Being honest is not a pass to be an asshole.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you get to be frank and rude. Honest. And people are like, I'm just being honest, or you think I'm being I'm just being funny. No, you're not being funny. You're being an asshole. You're saying something deliberately hurtful that you secretly, deep down, subconsciously want us all to hear. Because you're upset about something. The correct way to do that would be to say, hey, because we're good friends, if you are good friends, look, can I sit down and have a discussion with you alone at a different time if you feel comfortable? And, I felt uncomfortable living with you for this reason, right? Something simple. You're not washing the dishes. You're not cleaning up after yourself. I feel like sometimes some of the words you say make me feel uncomfortable, right? It goes back. You have to lead that discussion with compassion and kindness, step by step. And if somebody says, I don't want to have that discussion, they don't want to have that discussion. Just because I think the discussion will lead to the greater good, if they don't want to have it, we're not having it.
Well, that's
you know what I mean?
That's the hard thing about getting these conversations going is how do you get somebody who doesn't care about it to care enough to listen?
Exactly. And it's like, maybe they don't care. And you know what? That is okay. It is okay that not everybody is going to agree. It is okay that I won't be loved and accepted by everybody. That is life, and that's how it is. But if we don't accept that and then approach our response with kindness, if that immediately makes you angry, you have to go, okay, hold on a minute. Why am I getting angry?
Yeah.
Probably because I'm defensive and I feel a little unsafe.
Yeah.
Because now I know that this person I'm talking to doesn't support me, doesn't believe in who I am. That's okay that I'm feeling that way. That's natural. I assume, I'm no psychology major, I don't have a degree in this, but I would assume that comes from safety and just human instinct to feel safe around the people you're around.
Yeah.
So, again, it's a later discussion to have.
And it's hard for me to really have an opinion on that because I try to treat everybody with kindness, and I feel like I don't understand why somebody would always, okay, what's the best way to explain this? I definitely am a sensitive person, right? I have feelings. But I can see the to an extent, some people being too sensitive. Because, but I don't know if I really have the right to say that because I'm a straight white man. So like I've never really been bullied either. So it's like I don't know exactly what it feels like to feel isolated in a room of people. Or I don't know what it feels like to walk in a room and have eyes on me because I'm different or because I like different things. So it's like,
let me put a caveat on that and say your opinion is important and it is valid. I don't want you to discredit yourself right now. But the fact that you think about that is you've been able to, you're noticing and saying, maybe I'm not the person to lead this discussion on bullying, right? Because I have not been a victim of bullying and I have not been a perpetrator, right?
Yeah.
Is what it sounds like you were saying to me.
Yeah, well, I guess really what I'm trying to ask is, I feel like you said something like when you go into work, you feel like it's good to tell everybody, like, or in a perfect world, it'd be good to be able to tell everybody, like, oh, I'm having a bad day. Can you understand this? And, like, from me, it's like, if I'm at work, I just feel like that would be unnecessary. And I think maybe the reason why I feel like it's unnecessary is because I've never, like, to me, I never had to really open up about shit like that. Like, oh, I was having a bad day because I got bullied, or I was having a bad day because I'm black, or I'm having a bad day because I'm gay. So it's like, So when you say going into work and, like, discussing your feelings, I think there's a time, for me, there's a time and place for doing that. Yeah, but there's also, like,
you have to
sometimes it's like, okay, so I guess that's it. Do you think that every place you walk in, whether it's work, a friend's house, you go, like, you should just be able to pour your heart out, spill your feelings?
No.
Okay.
That's unfair to the other people because they're not saying, hey, I want that every day.
Yes.
But I do think there's, I would like to lean on the side of, if you're having a really bad day, I just want people to know that if they're having a terrible day and I go up to them and I say, how are you doing? When I say, how are you today at work? I'm not expecting you to go, oh, I'm good, how about you? And exchange pleasantries. Yeah. That is polite. I respect that. That is nice. Some people operate that way. I operate that way at times. We all do. We don't fit a simple mold, right? And when some people do that, I'm like, oh, I know that they're being polite in doing that. Even though it may sound like they're not being sincere, I know that they're being polite. But I just want other people to know that when I say, how are you doing today? I really am asking. And if you want to respond with, oh, I'm fine. I'm having a good day. What about you? And you don't need to have a discussion. You're fine. You don't want to. You don't feel like it. That's fine. That's cool. We're just living our lives. But if you do feel the need to be like, I just had a coworker who was like, I was like, how are you doing today? And he was like, I'm not doing too good. And I was like, do you want to talk about it? And he was like, yes. He goes, and I wouldn't talk to many people about this, but I do actually feel very comfortable around you. And I do actually need to have this discussion. And we talked about it. Mm-hmm. I just want people to, at the end of the day, I want people to know, at least for my personally, that I'm actually there for you.
Yeah.
If you come in and you're having a bad day and you do need to have that discussion, I am that person you can come to and have that discussion. And I expect, too, if I'm having a day and you come up to me and you want to have that discussion, I'm not in the place to have that, and I say, I don't want to, we're not having that discussion.
Yeah.
And I expect that you have that same level of respect for me.
Okay.
So there is, it's much more niche, Yeah. It's not as simple. I don't think it's a simple standard. It's a one-by-one person basis. And what does that mean? God forbid we got to get to know people. We got to be more selective about the people in our lives and really lead lives with presence, kindness, compassion, and integrity.
No, I'm glad you made that distinction because without putting words in your mouth, it sounds like what you mean is you don't have to necessarily.
I will tell you if you're putting my words in my mouth, so you're fine. Don't worry about that. I don't think you are.
What it sounds like to me, what you're saying, which if this is the case, this is what I agree with. If you're going into a situation, whether it's work or whatever, not necessarily always saying, "Oh, here's my day. Like I'm having a bad day. Let's always discuss it."
No, I don't need an extra email from you on your feelings.
But it's okay if you do that. It shouldn't be like weird. Like, oh, well, he actually said he's not having a good day. How do I respond?
Exactly.
Okay. That makes more sense to me than what I thought you originally meant, and I agree with that.
No, I mean the latter. Yes, what you just clarified is what I meant, and thank you, because I hope that clarifies for people that would be
listening. I probably just misinterpreted it, but it's good to know that, because I agree. I think you should be able to have those conversations with not just good friends, but like if you're having a really bad day, you know what? I'll share a really personal story that is embarrassing as fuck, and if anybody I used to work with hears this, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about, and either way.
Oh, wait, you're actually going to do this
I'll
now?
tell you the story.
Yeah, I'm ready. I love this.
It was embarrassing as all hell, and I regret doing it, but I couldn't. Sometimes as a human, you can't keep shit in.
I 100% agree.
And I will say they handled it.
You're not a bad whatever. Well, I haven't heard it yet, but I would assume you're not a bad person.
No,
for whatever it is. So don't harbor that.
I'll tell you the story, and I will say that they handled it well because it was very uncomfortable for me, and I guarantee it was very uncomfortable for them.
Okay.
So at work, I'm the type of person to have. I have like at my desk spot, right? I usually keep pictures of like me and my friends, me and my girlfriend, me and my family, me like just pictures that make me happy.
As most people
right?
do. Yes.
What makes me happy in life are my personal connections with people. So it was, I've addressed this in previous episodes.
High five. Come on.
I've addressed this in previous episodes. I went through a really bad time where I lost a friend, bad breakup, whatever. Really shitty fucking time for me. Their pictures are up there. And so, to me, I had two options. Take it down, and then people will ask me, oh, why'd you take the picture of your girlfriend down? And then I have to have that conversation. Or keep it up and then have to deal with the pain of looking at it every day. Mm-hmm. So, I couldn't help how shitty I felt. And, like, I didn't want to have any of that conversations, but I also didn't want to see their pictures every single day. So, I fucking made a meeting request with the people in my team. And
say that again.
A meeting request. So, I booked a meeting room. There was like 5 or 6 people in my team. I said, hey, got to talk to you guys. And, at first, because I'm usually like a funny, like happy person. They're like, oh, this guy's, what are you calling us in a meeting to? You going to kill us? Like, what? Yeah. Like, there wasn't even like a subject.
This means a boatload of work.
The subject was like, I need to talk. So I was like,
oh, that's, because you get that, like,
because you get awkward when you're on a stage like that. I didn't know how to fucking express myself. Yeah. So we get in the room, and like, before I can even say anything, I just start crying. And these are my coworkers, dude. I'm at fucking work, just crying, grown ass man, and like I'm like, dude, what am I doing? But so to your point, I wish that wasn't so uncomfortable because like it was a conversation that I couldn't really avoid because eventually, if I took the pictures down, and somebody was going to ask me about it. I would have to have that conversation multiple times with different people.
Yeah, exactly.
Or have it just head on. And it was nice that they reacted the way they did. They were uncomfortable, whatever, but they were like, oh, we're here for you. Sorry you're going through this, whatever. But the fact that even felt so awkward, I wish wasn't the case. You know what I mean? So to your point, I wish it was more
meaning the fact
inclusive,
that sharing your feelings and crying felt awkward? Or you're saying...
Because it was at work. Like, if it was my friends, it wouldn't have been... Like, I already had that conversation with my friends. But because, like, it's at work, like, I'm like, oh, I'm at work. I can't have this conversation. It's not professional. But I'm fucking human.
Yeah, right? Why is it not professional to
be human?
Thank you.
So...
And why is it not professional for a man to cry? Like, for the love of God, come on. What is this, 1942?
I don't know.
Like, it's just... I mean, it's the same... Like, we don't have discussions about periods. Like, women experience it once a month, every damn month. If straight men were having periods, if that was happening to me, you sure as hell believe the whole world would be talking about it all the damn time.
Oh, I'd be a nightmare if I was
having a
period, I'm sure.
So it's just like, and that happens a lot in work. I think that's a common trope of the workplace, right? We're supposed to do the job, but we can't let anybody know about all the things we have to do the job. Yeah. Same with like serving, right? We can't let anybody know that we're making your coffee this way, which is the proper, healthy, normal way. But I can't let you know that I'm making it. I have to make it seem like it magically appeared on this 14-karat gold tray that I'm setting down on your table, and there's no splash or drip of the coffee, and there's a perfect crema on top of your mocha or latte, right? It's just absurd that we are living our lives and saying, I can't be a human. It doesn't, and I think you agree with this too. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. I have always felt that way. I just don't get it.
Yeah.
But I understand that there are people who don't feel that way, and that's not the way the world works.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I feel like at least since I've been alive in today's society, we have to almost dehumanize people that we have everyday interactions with because we don't have the capacity to care for everybody.
Yeah, well said. Because then what would we do? We'd all just fall on the floor.
We'd all be too emotional.
We wouldn't be able to handle it.
But at the same time...
Hey, that's so true. That's why we love theater. I'll just put in a theater plug there because that's why I love acting. That's why I love theater, because then I'm literally being paid to be that sloppy-ass, distraught person and just be there and being 100% honest. Some people don't want to be there, and that's the beauty of it, right? Then you can have an audience come in and say, I want to come in, sit down, and not have to be living my day, right? I can't. And well, you go do that. You go fall apart on stage. But then I get some sort of empathy and experience and catharsis from it from watching you do that. Okay, anyway, sorry, but I cut you off.
No, I just was saying, like, so it's impossible to care for everybody. We don't have that ability.
Yeah,
I think it would be unhealthy to do that.
Literally collapse, and glitter and shit would just pour out of the center of the core of the earth.
Yeah, it would be bad. But I just don't like that we have...
Because we'd have to colonize Mars.
I just don't like that it has to be so dehumanized. Like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I don't know. I just wish...
No, I think you've said it.
I know. And
I don't think anybody likes it. They're just used to it. And people like familiarity and the ease, and that comes from being used to it. So, it's easier to go into work and dehumanize everybody because then you don't have to deal with anything.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Like, I don't like it either. But it's easier. That's why I think we fall into that trope. And I think that is why some people think they like it, is because it's easier. We think we like easy, but so many of the important things in life come from the hard things that we do and the hard milestones, right? Nothing worthwhile is ever easy.
I agree. And honestly, I hate to bring it back to this because this is always a common theme in my fucking podcast episodes, but it's important. Another place where I think, because we dehumanize, in everyday interaction, the one place where we can go out and put our thoughts is social media. And it's like, that, but that's not humanized. That's not.
It's not real. Either. It's literally not real. It's literally exists in the air and in computer banks in government stations. Like, it is literally not. It is not tangible. The picture that you post is not tangible. Yes, I can look at it on an LCD screen, and I guess you can print it off, and I can hang it up on the wall, and then it is tangible. But taking an actual photograph on a Polaroid and waiting for it to print involves integrity and need and want and a physical action, right? It's so much quicker for me to just go and post something. That weird noise I just made.
Yeah.
Everyone's wondering what it was. That was I guess, the sound that comes to my mind when I think about posting a picture on Instagram. Yeah.
But, so, I mean, to kind of further that line of social media not being a good place for honest discussion, or honestly, in my opinion, to get your information from.
Agreed. There's a very, very fine line.
One of the things, or media in general was hard, but one of the things you identified that wasn't even on my list because it just happened was like the storming on the Capitol, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
I'll be honest with you, when things like that happen, not saying that that's common because that's obviously a very extreme case, but anything that's super negative and divides people, I honestly can't stand to go look at my timeline. I can't stand to watch TV. And it's not because I don't care about what's happening, because I definitely do. But what fucking frustrates me so bad is that people will take something to see, whether it be in the media, even if it's on the media, as fact. And then instantly, if you disagree with that, you're an asshole. It's like, dude, I don't know what I agree with. And I don't know where to get my resources from. So, point being of bringing that up, you obviously put the Capitol storming on here for a reason.
Yeah, well,
so
you
probably have an opinion
so
on
timely,
it.
I couldn't. I mean, I guess when this airs, it won't be as timely.
But it's relevant right now.
Literally, what day is today? Today's Saturday. Yeah, Thursday?
Yeah, I think so.
Thursday evening.
So, you obviously have an opinion on it, which means you're probably more educated on it than I am. Because like I said, I care, but I've stayed away because it frustrates me to see that this is where we're at.
Yeah, I know. So, I think everybody feels that way. So, that's the same reason I think people, I was talking to a family member, and my godmother was like, I don't watch the news. I don't watch local cable news. And that in and of itself is its own discussion, right? Cable news today and the local news, it's not what it was 40 years ago when breaking news was 9/11 or breaking news was the fall of the Berlin Wall. Like, actually the Capitol is breaking news, obviously.
Yeah.
But you don't. My point in that is you almost don't know where to look, right?
Dude, that's what I'm saying.
You don't know where to look, and it requires. I will say there's a bit of privilege in that to an extent. I don't think a lot, but I guess I don't want to say I don't think a lot. It depends on the situation. A lot of many other things.
So what do you mean? And I'm not taking offense. I just want to clarify. What do you mean by there's privilege in not knowing where to look?
I don't think there's privilege in not knowing where to look. Forgive me. We all know people who are like, I don't pay attention to politics. Mm-hmm. I don't pay attention to what the government votes on. Mm-hmm. I don't go to vote in the election. That I think for some people it errs towards that.
Yeah.
It's an extension of people's. Well, of course you don't need to. Your life is not at stake. People aren't voting on your rights. If people were voting on your rights and your minimum wage and your ability to have a life and get married and have children, and
it's going to become more important.
Then it's going to become important, and I'm sure you're going to be paying attention, right?
Yeah.
That's what I meant. So I think for some people it falls in that sense. They never engage in any sort of anything going on in the world.
They're comfortable.
Because they're comfortable, because they can be. I don't think you were doing that, and I don't think that ignoring or not knowing where to look on your social media is that. That's not what I'm saying. So I see how it kind of came off that way, and I didn't mean that.
No, I don't think you were like attacking me.
No,
and I will say, I am privileged in the sense that to my personal life, no matter if Trump or Biden's president, my personal life, I don't think that I will see much of a change in how I'm affected.
Yeah.
With that being said.
But you've acknowledged that, and that.
Yeah,
do you know how many people don't even acknowledge that? Well, it will take years and years for them to get to that point. They will never acknowledge that their whole lives. They'll go to their deathbed with it.
But the thing is, it's such a weird thing, and not that you even asked, but it's weird because I recognize that I have that privilege, and I guess I'm glad I have it. But at the same time, it's like I don't necessarily want that because. I could say, oh, I voted for Trump, and then I'm racist, or I voted for Biden. It's like, well, then it's like. I don't know. I don't know what people fucking want from me. I want to have my opinion and not be attacked for having my opinion. But me saying that, I feel guilty saying that because I've never been in the group of people that are isolated or condemned. I've always been in like the privileged group. So it's like I don't even know if I have the right to say that I feel guilty. You know what I mean?
You do, but. We can't have that discussion yet until we first fix people getting murdered.
I recognize that.
And the way the Black Lives Matter protests went outside the Capitol, met with the National Guard pre-stationed 3 hours before. And then here we have the Capitol storming that when people were seeing on Reddit and Twitter and a lot of rhetoric going on social media and Facebook that this was a planned protest at some point, that this was going to happen. And it takes the National Guard 4 hours to show up.
Yeah.
So it just shows that there is it shows so many things. But going in terms of what you were saying, there's a time and place.
Yeah.
And that discussion, I think that discussion is to be had. But this is not, we're not there yet. What's more important, right? And it's not saying that you're not important.
I understand.
Yeah, it's the same reason we have the All Lives Matter discussion, right? When people say All Lives Matter. Well, when I keep using the example of when there's 10 houses on a street and one house is on fire and you call the fire department, the fire department doesn't say, well, all houses matter. So we're not going to come tend to your house that's burning down.
Yeah.
No, this is what's important. We have to fix that issue before we can fix the others.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is when people stand in the way of that. And they say, no, this is more important. And it's people who've not realized that their biggest disenfranchisement is their opinion.
Yeah.
When people's biggest disenfranchisement is tuition and life and their job and public transport systems that don't work for them and getting murdered and not being able to even go about their day. Yeah.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying. I definitely...
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. And at work, we've had a lot of training discussions and videos on sensitive topics like that. And one of them is Black Lives Matter. And I think I do grasp that concept. I understand why that's important and not all lives matter, because of course they do, but that's not the focus.
Exactly.
Right now. I get that. What I don't like, and again, maybe, and tell me if this is privilege, because it could be. What I don't like is like if I go on social media, right, or, okay, so scratch it. So there's different news outlets, right?
Yeah.
CNN is notoriously left-sided. Was it Fox is notoriously right-sided, right? And then there's, depending on who you follow, there's different news outlets, whether it be online or on social media, that are, again, biased in a certain direction. What I don't like is, like, I've already confessed to you that I don't pay very close attention to things like the Capitol storming because I don't know what to believe. But if I haven't made up my mind yet, I'm getting demonized. Like, for example, when it came to the election time, right? I don't know enough.
What do you mean? Can I clarify? What do you mean when you said what getting demonized? This is not a judgment. I'm genuinely asking.
Yeah. So I will use this part as an example. If people ask me like my political views when we were coming to the election, and if I said, I don't know, so right now I'm leaning towards a third party because all I hear are such bad things about the left and such bad things about the right, and I don't know where I stand. Like if I was telling, like I have a lot of friends who are very left-sided, right? I go and say that, I don't know. Oh, well then if you don't vote for the left, then you're racist, and it's like, then you want to set back women's rights, gay rights. It's like, you know me. Do you think that's true? No. But because I haven't made up my mind, why are you associating me with such?
Well,
and both sides do it. And same thing with this capital thing. Like you see online, you can see pictures or clips of what somebody said or did that is very bad, right? But we have to be conscious that a video clip or a picture can be taken out of context and chopped up. Like literally, somebody could chop up this conversation we're having now and just put together words 100%. That make us both sound terrible. And so I'm not saying that what somebody did or this Capitol storming wasn't bad, because it definitely was. There's definitely things that need to be discussed.
Yeah, I don't think anything was, in what I've seen and what I have dug to see, all of the videos are obviously, and not that you're saying that, but yeah.
Yeah, they're not doctored.
They're not doctored. This is what happened. We saw it. We saw violence. We saw...
Yes. The event, and so my point of bringing this all up is I think the event was very true, and there's not really two sides to it, right?
Yeah, exactly what happened.
However, some of the things that come up afterwards is like some of the different people that are going in there, some of the conspiracy theories of different people that are being in there, and like
conspiracy theories are just all over the place.
But it's annoying because if and I don't do this just because it's not worth my time, but if I was to comment on somebody's tweet or Facebook post saying, well, before you cancel anybody or before you make these assumptions as fact, take a second and realize that they could have been manipulated. Not saying that they are, but they could have been. I wish everybody
thought like that.
So the point when I say I feel like I get demonized is if I was to voice that opinion saying, look I'm not saying you're wrong, but let's not write off the other side just yet because it could have been manipulated. Obviously, the storming happened. I'm not saying that's wrong.
Yeah.
But in scenarios like this, at least in my opinion, I feel like the media, and maybe it's just people I follow, I don't know, it's one side, and if you're unsure of what side you're on, well, then you're bad. And I don't like that. And maybe that's privileged.
So, two things on that, I guess. One is, I just want to notice how we have the inclination to do that when the situation, like the Capitol, we have the inclination to say, well, we can't all make a quick jump to conclusions, right? When it's a bunch of white people.
Okay.
And notice how we didn't have that inclination when it was people of color protesting for Black Lives Matter.
See, again, though,
I think you have that inclination, but not a lot of people have that inclination.
And I would agree with you.
Do you know what I mean?
I do agree with you to an extent.
So it sounds like people are yelling at you for things that they actually should be having discussions with other people.
And this kind of goes back to what Megan and I were saying, is people will put things in black and white. So just because... But it's annoying because it happens to not just me, but other people who don't know where they stand. It's like, well, if you don't fucking stand with us, you're against us. And it's like, dude, there's a gray area in every scenario. In every scenario.
Yeah.
And, when it came to the BLM movement and whatnot, I wasn't the type of person who was like, oh, well, take a pause. Like, maybe they did it on themselves,
Oh, yeah. Totally.
But... And so I think there are people who they start questioning it and say, take a second when it's against their own beliefs. I agree with what you're saying. Yeah. But in any scenario, I just don't like that, like...
We jump to conclusions.
There's never going to be a quick answer, so why are you demanding it as a quick answer?
I agree. And
so that is what I don't like, and that's specifically what I notice on social media and on media channels, whether it's Fox or CNN or anything in between. If you don't have a fucking decision made up right away, well, then you're against us. It's like, dude, I
also think part of that comes from the news channel inherently, right? They need to get views. They need to. They have to have a decision. Yeah. That is what they're selling themselves on, right? So I don't necessarily. I mean, I blame them when their decisions are biased and unvalidated, right? That's what you have to. People, we're all not black and white. You have to take the time for yourself.
But people don't care enough to
exactly to figure out that. I'm someone who likes to look. I like to look at the headline of each, just because I'm a weird nerd like that, right? I like to see what the Fox headline says. I like to see what the CNN headline says. I like to see what the Times headline says. Blah blah blah, and go all back and forth, right? And then or in the Washington Post, and go around to all the different media outlets: conservative, liberal, independent, yada yada, business oriented, right? These facets of opinions, and then there are literally Harvard studies you can find too that help show you what news broadcasters and what news reporters and anchors, what news publications are actually the most reliable. One of the most reliable in their standard reporting is the New York Times and the New Yorker. Of course, these both lean liberal, but more so they lean liberal as proven in their Harvard studies in the, their op-eds, their opinion articles.
Okay.
Right? So I think sometimes the truth of the matter does lean more liberal, and sometimes it does lean more conservative.
Yeah.
And that's just life. That's how it is. And people want to, it's easier for us to say, are you telling me that everybody in this whole nation fits into one of two groups?
No.
No. We've got what? And then we've got the Green Party and Independents. 4 groups. I barely fit into the same group each day. Half the people in this country barely fit in the same damn pair of pants every day, right? And you're telling me I have to pick a political group?
Yeah.
No, my mom is someone who's notoriously is always saying, sorry, Mom, that, she generally ends up leaning towards certain people, yes, but the ideal way to do it is vote issue by issue.
Yeah.
I look at the issue, I take all of the facts that I can get around it, and then I make a decision based on it. And if that issue then allows something else to happen or something, then I have to consider that. But this is the same thing we were talking about when we're saying work. If I go into my life and I have to make all of these decisions, I would just cease to exist and fall on the floor. That's so much work, emotionally, mentally, physically, right, to do all of these things. So no wonder people don't do it. And I can't expect everybody to. I don't even do it all the time, right? And I think that just shows, look at what we've done to our society. I'm an optimistic person. I may not sound optimistic
I am
right
too.
now,
I try to
but
be.
I'm like the most optimistic person, and it is my downfall so many times. I'm always giving people the benefit of the doubt. And I think it's because people don't inherently want society to be terrible. I don't think the reason we developed the things we developed and the reason we landed where we landed today was because we wanted bad things to happen to good people. I don't think that's the truth. I know people would disagree with me, but I inherently don't think that's true. I think in facets, that may be true. We inherently wanted people of color to have less rights than us. I didn't physically wake up and make that decision, but in the past, that decision has been made, right? Not by us, but there are consequences of that decision. At the same time, there are people who've come up with medical solutions to illnesses that have saved lives, right? So it's sad, but I think we just, ideally, we need to take a look at society as a whole, especially in America, and just say, hey, it's okay to say, hey, we're not doing this all right, and that is okay.
And we don't know what to do.
And we don't know what to do. I don't fucking know what to do. So let's look to the people who studied this and the people who have said, I've been a scholar, I have a PhD in this, I've been studying these decisions for 50 years, right? Maybe I should sit back and listen to that person because they might be able to help. Yeah. And then we can all listen and have that. Wouldn't that be nice, man? And we all have some fruit punch and some cake and
That's a perfect world.
Yeah, right? And I know that's not going to happen, but I think at the end of the day, it comes down to, it may sound cliche, but compassion, kindness, patience. You've got to sit down and, because then here we are all arguing, right? And seeking to divide, and we're all divided, and then we're all arguing, and look who's winning. The powers that be, or the devil, or you know what I mean? The bad is winning in those moments when we can't actually take a moment to just sit down and talk to each other and actually give somebody a hug and listen. You know what I mean?
I agree with you, and that's why. And I was having this conversation with my dad a while back, and we'll make it short because I know we're getting to our time here. But as great as it would be to implement change at such a high power and
it's gonna take
a vast
time,
change over the nation, right?
Yeah.
At least in my belief, being an optimistic person, and I think you might be able to agree with this, is I don't think right now I have the ability to spark change in the entire country or the entire world. I don't think that. However, I can treat you as a human. I can treat you as how I like to be treated. I can treat the next person the same way, and so on and so forth. And maybe those people like to be around me, and they learn something from me, and then like to treat other people in the same way that I just treated them. So you can't spark this huge change from at the top. I think it has to start ground up. And
can I ask you a question on that? If you feel like that thought do you not think that, why do you not think that going around and doing that is not sparking a big change?
Because not everyone's doing it. That's the issue.
Okay, but one person is doing it. You're doing it.
Yeah, but I think because I can only affect the people that I, you know, interact with.
Well, I think those people would be affected, and those if that small choice does make a change. I think that is doing something.
Yeah, and I agree. However, it's not. I think everyone's idea is we have to make a change now from the top up that affects everybody and trickles down and makes things better for us on a daily life, whether it be laws, whatever, which would be awesome. But I don't.
Well, that's not. Yeah, that can't happen.
I don't think
overnight.
that's. I also. Yeah, it's not a quick fix.
No,
A.
it's not.
B.
As we've obviously seen everywhere.
Yeah. B. It's not a perfect world, so it's not. It's just not going to happen like that. It's not a quick fix.
Exactly.
What we can change is how I recognize things to be and how I choose to treat people. And if enough people do that, well, then we're slowly making progress from the bottom upwards. And maybe if it's infectious enough, then we can start bringing the top in with us. But it's not a fast process.
No, it's not a fast process. But I would. That's the only thing I would challenge you on is Rosa Parks made one decision,
Mm-hmm.
and that decision changed a lot.
Yeah.
George Floyd. That's one moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to discredit his experience to one moment, obviously, but I'm saying that actually those 7 seconds,
Mm-hmm.
7 minutes, that made a big impact, right?
Yeah.
We've seen that one person's decision in their day, the decision I make when I walk out that door today to be a sober driver
Mm-hmm.
makes a big impact.
Yeah.
I think we're almost too quick to assume that the little decisions we make in life don't make a big impact just because we don't immediately see change.
No, and
I don't think you're necessarily saying that by any means, but I would say I think you are making more of a change by being the person that you are than you think you might be.
well, then let me redefine it. That's my point. Is I think it is significant enough to make the small change, and I'm saying small change because I'm one person, and yes,
Yeah.
I could do something that's significant and it's really big.
Yeah, of
However,
course.
it's not as big as if I was a president and said, okay, everyone who's
What-
incarcerated for weed.
Yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
that's a
like
bigger-
literally sign a piece of paper and it's done.
I don't have the power to do that.
Oh, totally.
I think my power or your power or anybody's power in an everyday life comes from how they interact with people, and it can be
100%
very
agree.
significant. And obviously, the way I want to treat people, I can't just force somebody to treat them the same way that I do it.
Yep.
Point being is,
Treat people with kindness, man.
I
Come
think
on,
it
Harry
starts. I think it starts small, and even though it's significant, I'm just a blip on the radar of what is humanity. But it's a small thing that we can do every day. That maybe the laws will still be against us, maybe the policies will still be against us, but we can do it. We can still make people comfortable with how we interact with them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
And I know it's more optimistic than it is because obviously, if I'm having a bad day, I can't be super positive to somebody. But
I understand that my
control
ability to be optimistic sometimes comes with privilege at times.
Yeah.
With my white privilege, I understand that. But at the same time, I know times when it doesn't. Those two aren't intersecting at that point.
Yeah.
So positivity, kindness, compassion, and acceptance, I don't think will ever can ever really be a bad decision. And
Yeah.
I agree, making those little decisions like just asking someone, hey, can I give you a hug before you hug them?
Mhm.
Or, obviously, how many things could have been alleviated in life had we just asked?
Yeah.
Or had we just thought about the decision we were making? People aren't, and I don't believe people are inherently bad.
I would agree with that.
I know that's controversial. It will
Yeah, it
controversial. It will forever be controversial, right? We make movies, TV, art, film, music about that all the time. The Joker, right? That's the whole epicenter of that whole film, right? So it's just, we can't make all of these. We can't assume that all of these little decisions don't make an impact because they do. Not that you're saying that.
Yeah.
That's just what I want to remind.
No,
people.
I agree. And I think another very small thing I just want to introduce is, yes, we should treat people with kindness and whatnot, but we also need to be mindful that people make mistakes. And if you make a mistake, fine, but be genuine in how you react to that mistake.
Yeah.
For example,
Cancel culture.
Well, yeah,
That's a perfect
that could be a
example,
whole
'cause
other
everybody-
hour conversation. But like I would say, generally, I'm a nice person. Generally, I treat people with respect. However, I would be line if I didn't say, oh, I've made a bad comment to somebody, or I've treated somebody
Totally.
badly on a certain day, or just somebody badly that I've known, whether it be multiple days. But those things don't define me, and I feel the gravity of how important, or how bad that felt to be, negative towards somebody else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
totally.
But so what we can do is recognize how we treat people and try to live that. But as well, if somebody treated me negatively, don't just be like, oh, well, fuck that person. Like, take a pause and step away, and then sometimes they are just gonna be bad to you for some reason, but it doesn't have to always be that way.
Yeah,
or it's not personal. Maybe they're just bad because they have something else that's bothering them, and you're just in their line of fire, which is unfortunate.
It doesn't happen at work all the time.
Yeah.
Right? We're trying to get one thing done, and in doing that one thing, we forget something else, or we say something here that we don't mean to be offensive. We don't mean to make someone feel bad, and somebody feels hurt.
Yeah.
And we didn't intend that. It doesn't make us a bad person.
Yeah.
It's life.
Yeah.
But it's when we can come together afterwards and be patient and listen and apologize and admit that some of us are fortunate in ways that others are not, and some of us are less fortunate in ways that others are fortunate. You know what I mean? It's different. The whole life is a spectrum, right? Yeah. Everything falls on that spectrum, not just sexuality, not just love, not just compassion and kindness and hatred and understanding. They're all it's tough, but life would be so boring if it wasn't tough.
That's part of what makes it beautiful, right?
Yeah, right. I agree.
I mean, we could go on for probably 3 or 4 more hours if we were talking about cancel culture. But
I've got a good amount of tea in here. I could keep, and not the tea, but literal tea.
I mean, I hear you. Before we send off, though, like to ask all my guests what's something they do that they helps them stay afloat, keeps them happy, their mental health tip in a sense. So I'll turn to you for that. If you have anything that you do.
I really should have thought, because I heard you ask Megan this, and I really should have thought about this. But I was like, no, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to decide because I don't exactly know. What do I do for myself?
That brings you happiness, or makes you step back from the ledge if you're having a bad day.
I would say honestly, breathe. Mm-hmm. Take a moment and breathe. Remind myself to be present. That I'm sitting here having a discussion with Seth, hitting the mic and embarrassing myself with my pointer finger, my left pointer finger, having tea, touching the table, and that is okay, whatever it may be in that moment. So I would say that, and taking time for yourself. It's so important to learn to take time for yourself and say, I can't do that. You know what? I don't want to go out right now. I actually don't want to go. Mm-hmm. Be honest with yourself and with others. I actually don't want to do that. I don't want to go to that party. I don't want to have that drink. I don't want to talk to that person. I don't want to eat that meal. I don't want to go to that club. No. It is okay to say no. Especially if you're not saying it with hatred, you're just saying it, no, I need this for myself. We all have times to ourselves. I would say for me, it's when I hang out with people, I need the exact same amount of time that I hang out with people. I need that amount of time to recharge by myself. Mm-hmm. Has nothing to do with anybody else. Has nothing to do with hostility or anger or resentment. I just need that time. Yeah. It's equally introverted and extroverted. So I would say that. Find a way to take time for yourself and treat yourself to something while you're doing it. Yoga, a cup of tea, a vinyl, listening to music, sitting down, taking a breather, reading a book, taking a 20-minute nap, whatever it is that helps you feel a sense of normalcy and breath and relax, Say what you mean what you say, do what you mean.
Don't put too much on your plate.
Exactly.
Be honest about what you can do.
Yep.
I feel that. It's a good tip.
Yeah, I guess I would say, yes. Say what you mean what you say, do what you mean. Do it with integrity. There we go. That. That's how I'll put it all concise.
I like that. Thank you, AC, for coming out.
Yeah, thank you.
It's been awesome to meet you and talk to you.
Yeah, you too, man. It is a pleasure, really. I know we don't know each other, but I guess we know each other now. But thank you, really. I cannot thank you enough, and it's just, you being you, I appreciate that. I know we don't know each other well, but I thank you for being who you are and just being a good person. And being yourself. That is a hard thing to do sometimes. It's hard to wake up and be yourself. So thank you for doing that, whatever it may be today, in your Detroit hoodie with your beanie, looking comfy and stylish, and thank you.
Well, I appreciate those words. So thank you for coming on.
Yeah, of course, anytime. I know it's not live with Ryan Seacrest and Kelly Ripa, but
Maybe one day.
Anytime, man. You can pull me up on FaceTime. I got nothing else to do when I'm in Manhattan.
Did you want to plug anything? Promote yourself in any way?
I don't have anything to promote that I'm working on right now. I guess this would be it.
Okay.
If you need more information on me, my website is ACQUAGLIATO. My name, acquagliato.com. You'll find all my stuff on there. Resume, experiences, reel, all that jazz.
Instagram?
Instagram is the exact same.
All right, you know where to find him.
And all that jazz.
All right.
There we go.
you know where to find him. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
If you're listening to this, if you want to come on podcast, please send me an email or a message on Instagram. I'm not going to say the handles because by now you should know. All right, until next week. Thanks, guys.